Hi everyone, my name is Sean O'Neill and I work for the Maryville Police Department. I spoke with, Rachel reached out to our police department, she spoke with our training division, and the officer that she left the voicemail for, I happened to be walking through the office right as he checked his voicemail, and he goes, "Hey you'd be perfect for this." I'm like, "What are you making me do?" And he said, "No, I just want you to call this young lady." He kind of explained what it was, and because of nature of what I do, and the life we lead. I mean, my daughter's here. She may very well possibly be on the spectrum somewhere. That's a very, very real possibility, but it often goes unnoticed because she's very, very high functioning. But we have our youngest child. He has many things going on, but one of them that he has is an autism diagnosis. And he does a lot of the things like perseverating one thought just on a loop for a very long time. And so over time, I've had to learn how to interact with that. And if I really need something, how to kind of gently interrupt that loop and refocus our attention somewhere else. But I know that for a lot of people who feel like they don't interact with the world the same as we do, they're very intimidated by an officer in uniform. First of all, that is not a neurodivergent specific tendency. A lot of people are concerned when someone shows up in uniform. Just know that I'll give you, for instance, this is one of the things that I had planned to do tonight. So everybody knows that everybody with autism is like Rain Man. I can throw a box of toothpicks on the floor and you can tell me exactly how many there are. Or you can count cards in Las Vegas like you're a pro. Or you can't speak at all, or you can't look at me when you're talking to me at all. Okay, none of that is true, right? It's true for a few people. It's just like everybody knows that the police are really mean and we're going to be really hard on you. And we're going to ask a lot of difficult questions. And if you get distracted or you're not looking at me, things are going to go really bad. All of those things are just as untrue as the things that I just said about you all. We're individuals just like all the rest of you all. We all see the world slightly differently. I know there was one concern voiced about that often people who are on some neurodivergent spectrum are the victims of law enforcement violence and are fired on by police officers. I think that's kind of like, we were using this as an example on the way here. I think that's kind of like the razor blades and candy on Halloween. It's an urban legend that got started that has never happened. I'm not going to say I'm completely looped in, but I stay pretty read up on all law enforcement officer involved shootings. Is it possible that someone had a deadly force encounter with law enforcement who also happened to have autism? That's entirely possible. I don't think that those two things are necessarily related. So, but nevertheless, I'm here and people are concerned about interacting with us when they feel like they don't interact with the world the same. First thing to understand is across Blount County, we have, every law enforcement officer in the state of Tennessee is required to go to 40 hours continuing education every year. We have to go to 40 hours of school each year pertaining to how to do our job. Across Blount County, part of that training in that week-long school that we're in, part of that is dealing with or interacting with people who are on the autism spectrum, people who are neurodivergent in some manner. So all of my officers, I happen to be the day shift sergeant, so I supervise day shift Maryville Police Department. All of my officers have had training on that. They also all know, especially if I'm working, that if I hear autism, if I hear special needs, if I hear the word spectrum attached to a call, I'm coming. Because special needs is this giant umbrella, just like autism. It can mean a world of things. But if you have, as an officer, if you have some idea of where to start, it can go a long way towards smoothing the outcome. It can make things go a little bit better. What you guys should expect. The most common ways that you're going to encounter a uniformed officer is if you happen to be involved in a traffic crash, right? If you are a witness to a crime, if you are a victim of a crime, or you get pulled over for a minor traffic infraction. All of those things, every one of those can be handled. Okay, probably the two scariest of those for you all would be being involved in a traffic crash, because there's already going to be a lot going on. Okay, you're going to feel freaked out and overstimulated. Guess what? I'm pretty neurotypical. I've been involved in crashes. You're a little freaked out and overstimulated. It doesn't matter where you're at. It's all that's perfectly normal. So take a few deep breaths, do your best to calm down, maybe practice explaining what happened before we get there. We're not going to show up instantly. It'll probably be pretty quick. Maryville Police Department, our average response time to a traffic crash is about 2 minutes. So we're pretty quick, but you're still going to have time to run through what happened a few times in your head, so that you can explain it to us. And if you don't get it out the first time, don't worry about it. Okay, I'm gonna, hey, my name's Sergeant O'Neill, Maryville Police Department. Tell me what happened. Okay, and if you start to kind of go off the rails a little bit, I'm gonna say, okay, I'll tell you what, calm down for me for just a minute. I'm gonna go over here and talk to these people, and I'll be back with you. And I'm gonna give you more time to talk. I'm gonna give you more time to calm yourself down. I'm gonna give you more time to stem, whatever you need to do, and we'll get the information that we need. Same thing on a traffic stop, okay? You're gonna be nervous on that one. I'm gonna explain, this is how a traffic stop works. I know this is how a traffic stop works because I train traffic stops. I'm gonna walk up to your car and I'm gonna say, like this time of day, good evening, my name's Officer Sean O'Neill, or my name's Sergeant Sean O'Neill with the Maryville Police Department. The reason I stopped you today is you ran through that red light there, or you ran through that stop sign there on Montvale Station Road. I understand it's brand new, but is there any legal or justifiable reason for you to do that? I'm gonna let you tell me why that happened. Then I'm gonna say, okay, can I see your driver's license? May I see your insurance card? Once I get those two documents, I'm gonna go back to my car, and in the scenario that I just gave you, the new stop sign on Montvale Station at Beth Street, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna give you a verbal warning. I'm not gonna write you a citation for a stop sign that's been there less than 48 hours. I'm using that as an example because we probably made a dozen traffic stops at that intersection today. There are flashing lights that says stop sign ahead, but people don't pay attention. Those people who are neurotypical, some of you all, again, not everybody, some of you all have the superpower of hyperfocus. Let me tell you, mom, dad, the people who are neurotypical, they often don't have that focus. And they drive right past the flashing signs that says new traffic pattern, stop sign ahead. And then they drive right past a big red octagon that says stop. So that's how that's gonna happen. Now, when we interact with someone who is not neurotypical, who's neurodiverse in some way, the example that I gave earlier, this is a situation we had. We had, in a subdivision in West Maryville, we had a domestic call come out. The male was 19 years old, so he was technically an adult, but he wasn't very high functioning. He didn't live on his own. He lived with mom. They got in a heated argument over I don't know what. He pushed her and maybe hit her. She wasn't worried about any physical assault. Her concern was they had moved here 2 weeks previous, and he got mad and walked off. And she's worried that he's not going to be able to find his way back home. His sense of direction isn't all that good, and I don't know what will happen to him out in the world. We respond to the house. By the time we get there, he's sitting on the front porch. And he has, I swear I can't remember what it was. It was either string or rubber band, something in his hands. He's fidgeting. And my young officer sees him sitting there and says, "Hey buddy, put that down for me for just a minute." Now that's something to be aware of. One of the things that we're trained for, it's drilled in these young officers' heads from the academy, is the very first thing I notice about somebody when I meet them is their hands. Empty hands, I'm not about to die. That's how I have to understand the world. Empty hands, somebody's not trying to kill me. They don't differentiate what is in their hands. They just drill it in these kids' heads from the time, especially we've got some officers who start out in their early 20s. I was barely 22 years old when I started with the police department. So it's drilled in your head. Empty hands, you're safe for a moment. Well, this kid has something in his hands. The officer did exactly what the officer was trying to do. "Hey buddy, put that down for me for just a minute." This young man was not very high functioning, and he didn't even acknowledge the officer had spoken. He may as well not even have been there. Carried right along. Officer then goes to the next step of what he's trying to do. We operate on the principle of ask them. We're very polite about it. Ask them, tell them, and then make them. So he said, "Hey, would you mind putting that down for me for just a minute?" No reaction. "Hey, put that down for me." Much more direct. Zero reaction. No difference between the first and the second. So the officer starts over that way. I grab my officer by the shoulder and I pull him back. I said, everything was static, everything was safe. Kind of put my arm around him for a minute and I said, what that young man is doing is called stimming. He's calming himself down because he's worked up. If you go and try to take that away from him, better than average odds, we're going to be in a physical fight with that young man. You go talk to mom, I'm gonna go talk to him. I wound up talking at him. He didn't interact with me in any way, shape, or form, but his breathing slowed, the veins on his temples and at his jaw started to relax. He was much calmer. All mom really wanted was the child back home. Mission accomplished. We left. So this is an example of, and since that time, that has been before our training, our diversity awareness training. I feel like most officers would recognize, especially when they're told up front, this person has autism. They're gonna understand, hey, I might have to interact a little differently than I typically would. Some people who drive, some people put stickers on their car to make officers or paramedics, whoever, aware that this person you're about to encounter might not interact with the world the same way you do. We have a sticker. I drive a big Ford truck, and for my personal vehicle, and on the rear passenger door, on the window, it says, warning, may not respond to questions, may not respond to pain. I don't remember exactly what it says, but basically it tells any first responder, if we're involved in a collision, if you're interacting with Mike Kiernan, he could have something broken and he's probably not going to tell you.
It says something about not respond to interactions, pain, and might run and is a player as well.
And might run away, right? Because that's the other thing. You get super overwhelmed and you just don't want to be right here anymore. You don't care where you're at, just not right here anymore. That's the one biggest caution I can give you, especially if you're interacting with us on the street or you're driving a car and blue lights come on behind you. Your heart rate's gonna go up, your breathing, your respiration's gonna go through the roof. Guess what? I've been doing this for 23 years. The few occasions when I get stopped by officers, because it happens, I get stopped by an officer in my personal vehicle, guess what? My heart rate goes up, my breathing goes up. I know everything they're gonna do probably before they do. But we all have that reaction. Don't run. Find a safe place, stop your vehicle, or if an officer's coming to talk to you, do your best to take a couple of deep breaths, grab your whatever you use to fidget, calm yourself down. Don't run, don't fight. Those are two responses that we occasionally get. And again, officers are trained to notice these things. If you start spouting movie lines at me because you saw a movie once, and that seems to be the thing that you want, if you keep quoting movie lines at me, I'm gonna back up and create space. That's gonna do something for you. It's gonna probably calm you down a little bit. But statistically, if someone who is neurodivergent gets to that point, that they're basically automatic talking, quoting movie lines or TV shows or something else at me, looking at statistics, the next thing that's coming from that person is a physical attack on me. So that's where I'm gonna, maybe not because they've committed a crime or they have anything particular against law enforcement, just they feel really threatened right that moment. So that's when we back up, create a little bit of space, and let things cool down a little bit. Something that may happen on a traffic stop, especially if you're really worked up, something that may happen on a traffic stop, step one I would ask you to turn off your car, and if you have a key, if your vehicle actually still has a key, I'm gonna take that key. If it has a key fob, I'm gonna take that key fob back to my car with me, because you're not gonna be able to drive off then. Probably gonna have you turn the car off too. Just that way I know that you don't make a bad situation worse and decide to take off, and at that point I'm concerned about your safety as well as everybody else driving around. Because if you're running from me, you're probably not paying very close attention to how you're driving. So that's a little bit about kind of how we interact. We're not bad guys, despite what the press would have you believe. Apologies to the corner. Some press would have you believe. We're not the bad guys. I've never once gotten up first thing in the morning to get in this uniform and thought, I really hope I'm involved in a fight for my life today. Or I really hope that I get to use my weapon today. That thought has never occurred to me. That's the very last thing I want to do. And sadly, I have been involved in use of force situations. But there always is option of last resort. Whether it be a firearm, physically gathering a hold of somebody, going to an intermediate, something like a taser, it's always my very last choice. So just understand that officer is not angry with you personally. They do not wish you any harm. They want to keep you safe. Even if it's a driving infraction, they're stopping you because they don't want you to get hurt in a collision. And also, most of the time, most officers on a traffic stop, the point of a traffic stop is to change driving behavior. The point of a citation is to change driving behavior. If I have pulled somebody over and they are completely beside themselves and super nervous about, oh, I can't believe I just did that, and they're just distraught over it, they're gonna remember that a lot more than they are a minor traffic citation. I'm not worried about the ticket at that point.
They also don't get mad if you cry.
No.
They're not mad if you cry. I cried when I got pulled over.
Me too.
Just
Yeah, and when I got pulled over, I didn't cry. I was just being calm all the time.
being calm always helps the situation.
Yeah.
I told my older brother while he was driving me to the library, I told him what we would be doing tonight, and he gave me a few facts, and he said the first thing and the best thing to do is to stay calm.
Mm-hmm. Stay calm. Don't be digging around a bunch in your car. That has nothing to do with neurodiversity. That's just, I don't know who you are. And when someone's digging around in a car, and especially if you're in a car that happens to have tinted windows, or you've been reaching around in your car quite a bit when I got there, I may ask you to step out of your car. Doesn't mean you're in any more trouble. That's as much to keep you safe as it is to keep me safe. Yes, ma'am.
I have, like, on the seatbelt,
Mhm.
it's, like a card that says I have autism, but it's, like, attached to the seatbelt, and I'd have to reach down to get it.
That'll be okay.
Um,
Just, when I say reaching, we understand you're gonna have to maybe like reach for your purse or a wallet, gentlemen, something like that. But when someone's leaned down, digging underneath a seat, or rummaging around in a glove box or a console, like they just keep working, those types of things are not, that's things that are gonna make me nervous. Yes, ma'am.
I heard that you can say, is it okay if I get my license out, or is it
Yeah.
okay if I get
Sure.
my card to show you,
Sure, and I do that.
to let you know what I'm doing?
So I do that. Statistically, if you're a male and you're right-handed, you carry a wallet, that wallet goes in your right pocket. It's just normal. My wallet, I'm right-handed. My wallet is in my left pocket. The reason my wallet is in my left pocket is when I reach to my right pocket, I'm gonna have to reach across a gun to get there. When I get stopped, I leave my hands where they are. And when the officer stops, usually I'll tell the officer why they stopped me. I know exactly what I did to get stopped. And I'll tell them, hey, I know I was speeding up, my apologies. Listen, I'll be happy to get my license for you, or my wallet's in my left hip pocket. I'm an officer and I'm armed. And I tell them up front, I'm a police officer, I do have a weapon in the car, in fact, it's on my person. And I just wait for them to tell me my next move. Because in Florida, I had a gun mostly pointed at me on a traffic stop because I didn't get that far. The officer asked me to step out as soon as he got me pulled over. And when I opened my door, my pistol was in a holster that was clipped on the door pocket. He has no idea who I am. And when my door comes open, there's a Glock handgun right there. So when I step out, he's 3/4 of the way out of his holster, and I was like, whoa, I'm looking, when I looked back over my shoulder, I saw my pistol. I said, okay, right front pocket. There's nothing there that's gonna hurt you. I'm gonna reach in very slowly with my right hand, I'm gonna pull out a badge. I'm a police officer, is that okay? And he said, okay. And I got out my badge. To his credit, he has no idea what a Maryville Police Department badge looks like. I showed it to him, he never batted an eye. Didn't change his demeanor one little bit. He said, you got credentials to go with that? Meaning a actual police ID. I said, yes, sir. Told him where that was at. He said, get it. That was the end of it. I'd made an illegal left turn. No, this was years and years ago.
Okay, because I did not remember that.
No.
And your dad?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yes, ma'am.
So what should, like, a neurodiverse person say if they get pulled over? Like, if they know that they
Just explain to them, say, answer the questions, whatever, but maybe throw in there, okay, officer, I'm a little nervous. I have autism or whatever other diagnosis the case may be. I'm gonna do my very best. Just explain to them that maybe what might be perceived as lack of compliance on your part, not answering a question right away, might be, so Kieran, our little guy, a lot of times if you ask him to say something, like, hey, say hello to this person, you can't just wait a beat and go, oh, well, he's not gonna do it. Because by the time you get out of the room, he'll say hello. He just has to process. So explaining that type of thing to an officer up front so they know that you're not being non-compliant, you're not refusing to do what they're asking you to, it might just take me some time. And they're okay with that, I promise. They may not seem to believe you immediately, and they might not, because you have to understand, I kind of get lied to for a living, right? Like, I always assume most people during the course of a conversation with me are gonna lie to me about something. It's just the nature of what we do, especially if it's an enforcement action, right? Like it's a traffic stop. There's gonna be something that's not technically true. So it may take them some time to go, okay, I'm with you now. But you'll see that shift in the officer. You'll kind of just watch their body language relax. And I know that, again, this is one of those broad stroke paintbrushes. I know that many neurotypical or neurodivergent individuals don't always understand how to exhibit the social cues themselves, but they notice virtually all of them. They notice how my posture is. They notice if I'm ramrod straight and very abrupt versus when I, relax a little bit. My shoulders drop a little bit. I'm a little more relaxed. And you'll understand that at that point, okay, we're making headway. We're speaking the same language here. So I hope that I've begun to at least answer a few questions and concerns. That was I've done public presentations for the vast majority of my career. In addition to being a day shift sergeant, I've been a canine handler. I'm one of our translators for Spanish. I've done a variety of things, and canine, you wind up doing a lot of demonstrations. I never plan any of those out, ever. I just get up there and talk. I did exactly the same thing tonight. I had a few points that I wanted to hit, but nothing was, I have no cue cards. So hopefully I answered some questions, and maybe you thought of a question. And if you want to ask, I promise it's okay to ask me a question. I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to roll my eyes. And because let me tell you, when I started all those years ago, I thought I knew what this job was. I didn't have any idea. Unless you've done this job, you can't really understand this job. So there really aren't any dumb questions when it comes to how officers interact with people. And if someone wants to ask me a question by way of asking Liren, I'm happy to answer whatever questions. And again, I understand that because I asked for a question doesn't mean that you're immediately going to have one. I'm going to be here till you guys are done. I don't know if there were any questions in the box or not.
I think there's one.
Okay, Liren, can you grab it? Grab it and read it for me. My assistant.
Does the Maryland, Tennessee Police Department train on, okay, yeah, so
Yes.
grade.
Covered that, yes, we
Okay,
do.
so yeah.
We do train on neurodiversity, dealing with folks who are neurodivergent.
Yes.
In fact, all of Blount County law enforcement. So that goes Alcoa Police Department, Blount County Sheriff's Office, and us. In fact, I wound up, didn't know it was going to be, but I wound up the week that I was in service, because they can't send all the police officers to 1 week of training, right? There's got to be somebody to work. So it breaks out, like everybody has to do 1 week of training. Well, to cover everybody, Sheriff's Department's training division does about 3 months just to be able to get everybody in. So that's, several weeks of 9+ weeks of the same courses. And the week I happened to be in service, the lady who was teaching it, her name's Paige Craig, and Paige said, hey, heads up, I'm gonna want you to help with this week. And so I not only took the class, I helped teach the class. And she also sent me her PowerPoint the following week and said, I might be out. If I am, are you off on this day of the week? And I said, yes, that's one of my regular days off. She said, I might need you to come down to the academy and teach. So I said, that's not a problem. But anyway, folks, that's a little about us, and I'm going to be around here. So if anybody has any questions afterwards, and especially like in a semi-formal setting like this where I've got an audience, it's sometimes tough to ask a question. So if you want to come up to me individually, I'm fine with that too. All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate the invitation to come speak to you all.